Dear participant, next we examine ESCO models through a development lens, and moderating this session is Mr. Mark Lister, Chair of EVO and Co-CEO of Asia Clean Energy Partners, and with us in this session, Ms. Anna Zhovtenko from United Nations Development Program, Ukraine, and Mr. Sören David, Mitigation Action Facility, and Ms. Şule Kılıç, Deputy Head of EBRD Turkey. Let's welcome our panelists.
All right, thank you very much for the warm welcome, and I want to take the opportunity on behalf of EVO, the Efficiency Valuation Organization, to also thank our hosts, EUDER, for the amazing organization of this second International ESCO Symposium. I'm really pleased to be here. My name is Mark Lister, and I think, as David said on the last panel, he's the token American. I'm the token Australian. And I think in terms of carbon footprint, I won over all of you for the distance to come here, so apologies for that. But anyway, glad to add one more to the list of countries represented here, I think 44, which is very impressive. And our panel today is about the ESCO sector from a developing country perspective. So I have some history with this meeting and the ESCO network. So previously, my colleagues were in Copenhagen at the UNDP Copenhagen Climate Center, and so I was involved in the early thinking that there needs to be a global ESCO network. But also, as the chair of EVO, we see ESCOs as a natural partner for the kind of work that EVO does. So I'll just take 30 seconds to explain EVO. Hands up. Can I see some hands from the room, those of you who know EVO and what it does? Amazing. That is a bigger hand show than any conference I've ever seen before, because ESCO sectors know about M&V. Yeah, sure, we're done. Tick. That's good. No, but EVO, the Efficiency Valuation Organization, is the developer and owner of the International Performance Measurement and Verification Protocol, IPMVP, which I'm pleased to see a number of speakers today have referenced. It's the standard worldwide, developed 30 years ago and kept update by hundreds of practitioners to make sure we have a standardized methodology for measuring energy savings from efficiency projects. So this is something that helps as a building block towards growth of the ESCO sector. And EVO is pleased, as I said, to be part of this global ESCO network because we see that the needs of different countries around the world to develop and grow the ESCO sector are quite common. There's common challenges that everybody faces. These include going all the way back to the definition of what is an ESCO, and things like how you actually go ahead and build these standard ideas, how we create a model for sharing and knowledge transfer that works to create growth in the ESCO sector in developing countries. We saw from Clara this morning that a lot of the growth in the ESCO sector, or a lot of the volume in the ESCO sector, is with the developed countries of the world. So the US is very large, Europe is very large, China is very large. China is becoming a developed country. But these lessons need to be now transferred and the knowledge shared with developing countries. So we have a great panel here today of people with experience in this. I want to make this an interactive exchange rather than a one-way exchange because I recognize all of you here are also experts. Can I see from you who would consider that you're representing a developing country? Turkey, well, maybe, but that's a lot of hands. Others, but we already heard from some countries about the information they have. So we are not the only experts on this panel. You're also the experts, right? We have things to learn from you. You have things to learn from us. So let's try to make this an exchange and see if we can answer the questions that maybe you would have from this session. I think if you're looking at it, why did you come here today? Maybe if you come from international like me, you'll want to know what is happening in other countries, understand what is working, what's not working. What are the key lessons you can take away? And what's needed from this information sharing? And maybe if you're from here in Turkey, you're interested to know, how can I get support to grow what I'm doing? How do I work with other stakeholders to further my business, to further my work? Luckily, we have some really good representation here to think and talk about all of those things. So I'm going to ask the panelists to give a quick introduction, just to tell us who they are, where they're coming from, and their engagement with this sector. So first of all, Anna Zhovtenko from UNDP Ukraine.
Thank you very much. I'm Anna Zhovtenko. I'm project manager in energy and environment portfolio in UNDP in Ukraine. I led project which supported the development of ESCO market in Ukraine. And this is actually the first opportunity for Ukrainian experience to be presented at such a global community. Thank you for this opportunity.
Great, and we're very glad to have you. Thank you, Anna. Next, we have Sören David, who is the head of the technical support unit for the Mitigation Action Facility. So, Sören, please let us know about yourself. Tell us, what is the Mitigation Action Facility, for those who don't know, and tell us about your involvement with the ESCO sector.
Happy to do that, and thanks for the invitation. Do you want it in 1 minute, in 5 minutes, or 2 hours?
You can let's take 1 minute, we'll come back to you later.
Okay, basically, I'm the portfolio manager of the Mitigation Action Facility based in Berlin with a team of 25 persons, and we are providing grant funding to mitigation projects from the sectors of energy, industry, and transport. We have one project in Turkey that is from the industry sector, in the cement sector, actually. And we run annual competitive calls to identify those projects for support. They receive 5 to 25 million euros of funding from us, and that is then supposed to be leveraged on a project basis. We also have colleagues from Mauritius who are sitting on a project preparation of a project that we have selected in one of the previous calls. I wouldn't consider myself as an ESCO expert, but of course, I can share later on some of the success factors that projects would typically talk to so that they can win in our competition.
Okay, did you say you wouldn't consider yourself an ESCO expert? Okay, well, we will consider you an ESCO expert for today, that's fine. And we also have Sule Kilic. She is from EBRD here in Turkey, the deputy country head for EBRD. Sule, can you tell us, what is EBRD? What does this stand for, first? And tell us about your intersection with the ESCO sector and your focus on energy and infrastructure projects.
Sure. Thank you very much. First of all, and I'm really happy that this organization has been organized in Istanbul, this time in Turkey, because this ESCO developments and the policies which we have been doing over probably for the past 7 years now, hopefully this will start bringing concrete results. But let me tell you, who is EBRD? EBRD stands for European Bank of Reconstruction and Development. We are an IFI. We have 75 countries who are our countries of operation, plus EU and EIB are also among our shareholders. Turkey is one of the founding shareholders, and the bank was established in 1991 in order to support the countries to develop into free market economies and go through their development transition process. So our mission in the countries that we are operating is basically to support the countries in all dimensions for their development. And of course, we are a majority green bank, and we also are Paris aligned. Basically, any project we finance has to be Paris aligned project. And this means that green and climate ambitions and the targets which each of the countries that we are operating in respect to climate goals are very important for our operations in the country. In Turkey, we started operation in 2009, and as of today, Turkey is the largest country of operation with close to 10% of EBRD portfolio being in Turkey, with we invested over 22 billion euro in Turkey until now, and as of today, we have 8 billion euro of portfolio. And sector-wise, our sector coverage is, of course, sustainable infrastructure and energy, and all the corporates in the industry, and telecommunication and property, tourism, agriculture are all subsectors. But plus, we have also, through Turkish banks and partner banks, we also try to reach out to SME world to support their investments in that respect. So coming where EBRD links with ESCO, we initially, I mean, one of the things which is important is because we are a development bank, our aim is not just to provide financing like a typical commercial bank. And we call this a triangle engagement. The first one is the policy dialogue part, which we work very closely with the authorities and the ministries to develop policies in areas that we see a gap in the country. And this is as a result of a number of country assessments we have done. And then the second part is the technical cooperation part, we call it. And for that part, we have donor funds, and like Climate Technology Fund is one of them. We have our own shareholder spatial fund, which is allocated by our shareholders. And also all various different kind of purposed donor funding, which we have access to. And with this, we try to provide technical support in the development of the specific sector, which as a result of policy dialogue efforts we come across with the ministry. And the third part is the financing. So that's, I'll, if you wish, stop. And then later on, I'll explain more how we got started working on ESCOs.
Okay, thank you very much, Sören. That's perfect. At least we now know something about our moderators. They're all experts in various ways, even though Sören said he isn't. Of course he is. And you can already tell I'm kind of a talkative moderator. I also know something about this area. I used to be, in fact, the head of the ESCO Association in Australia a very long time ago before the market got serious. And you know, I've been involved in helping to create the building blocks of the ESCO industry in a number of countries around, mostly in Asia, where I'm working a lot these days. So now let's move to your engagement with ESCOs. And I suppose the question that I started out, let's hear your experience. I mean, everyone here needs to know an expert view. Everyone wants to hear a case study, some example of where it's worked. Then we can look at why does it work? Or maybe why doesn't it work? These are the important lessons that we need to take. It's good to know who is going to enable this work. I think here we have 3 organizations between UNDP, Mitigation Action Facility, EBRD. They are looking to enable this sector. So what are they looking for in the kind of development work that you're doing? And how can gatherings like this, the Global ESCO Network, how can this share information effectively with you so that you can be informed to take action with that? That's my summary of what we're trying to take away from this session. We're about to get into it, but I want to ask the audience, do you have any other questions that you want to ask now that you know the panel? Is there anything that you want them to keep in mind that they should answer in their presentations? Is anybody want to add onto that before we start? Are you awake? Okay, good. So let's get started. Maybe first to you, Anna, just to tell us about your experience with the ESCO sector development in Ukraine, and maybe with thinking about those sorts of questions. What is it that you find? What are the? I like the way that Pierre asked this morning. What is the thing that's making ESCOs work, and what is the thing that's making them not work?
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to present the support which UNDP has delivered to the Ukrainian municipalities to become more resilient and efficient in times of war using ESCO mechanism. I want to mention at the beginning that even before the full-scale invasion, Ukrainian municipalities were not energy efficient, lacking energy management, and relying mostly on the central energy supply with around 60% of coal and gas in their energy mix. And significant destruction of the country's energy infrastructure has left more than 20 million people with no reliable access to the electricity, highlighting the urgent need for energy efficiency and for green energy transition in the country. Working from 2015, ESCO mechanism has proved to be a reliable instrument for Ukrainian municipalities to attract funds to energy efficiency projects and to green energy solutions. In frame of the GAF-funded project, UNDP has provided significant support to local municipalities and to ESCO market in Ukraine, providing or attracting private finance to energy efficiency measures and installing distributed generation capacities on socially critical infrastructure. In 2022-2023, UNDP experts helped to overcome the difficulties with baseline estimation caused by the COVID pandemics followed by the invasion, and they amended the procurement procedure of ESCO service, making it 3 times shorter in time and enabling more buildings and facilities to engage ESCO projects. Our team also conducted awareness-raising campaigns promoting the benefits of ESCO mechanism at different public events, webinars, training. Our consultants supported cities with energy audits, with pre-feasibility studies. They have provided all the necessary templates and helped to prepare tender documentation for procurement. Also, in general, our team supported attract ESCO to public buildings, to water facilities, in street lighting, overall piloting 5 different ESCO modalities with special focus on solar power installations. And as a result, in 2024-2025, we have supported launching of 125 ESCO contracts with overall amount of the contracts is $35 million. But as you understand, only 1/3 of this amount is direct investment. And among these 125 contracts, 75 represent new and very popular from recent modality is ESCO solar plant modality, which provides solar power plant on water facilities and hospitals. In total, in total capacity, we reached 10 megawatt of capacity of these solar stations and 1 megawatt of energy storage. In amount of private investment, it was $8 million. So, considering that there are only local ESCOs at Ukrainian market so far, their investment capacity is very limited. Although there were no defaults of ESCO contracts even during the war times, still the access to the affordable finance is the main barrier for all ESCOs in Ukraine. In this regard, UNDP has established 2 innovative financing mechanisms to support them. In conclusion, I wanted to highlight that Ukraine has significant potential for investment in both thermomodernization and solar energy via ESCO mechanism. The thermomodernization is estimated in $8 billion potential investment, and the estimations of the potential capacity of the solar stations for water facilities and hospitals are 3 gigawatt of electricity, which will require at least $2 billion of investment. So as you see, there are procedures and instruments are in place, and therefore I strongly encourage international ESCO companies to consider entering Ukrainian ESCO market. Please do not wait till the end of the war. Your investment is needed now, and there are no barriers to enter the market.
Okay, great. Thank you, Anna. And it sounds like tremendous work that's going on there in very difficult conditions. A couple of things I picked up from what you said around quite a comprehensive program, I think, for UNDP across awareness raising, thinking about how to support energy audits and procurement, looking at some demonstration projects, helping with data and understanding energy savings, which will underpin confidence in those transactions, and 125 contracts worth 35 million. I was thinking of the comment made by Clara this morning when she was talking about the possibility for integrated projects rather than single solution projects. You mentioned solar installations, which of course can be on the demand side of the meter and used in an ESCO model, but what progress has been made on also integrating energy efficiency within those sites? Because obviously a more efficient building is going to supercharge the return from the solar as well. So has it been mostly solar PV, or has it been cases where you've also seen energy efficiency measures as well?
So far, unfortunately, there are 2 separate types of projects, either thermomodernization or changing of pumps in water facilities, water supply stations, or providing solar panels. But I think that or changing lamps in street lighting. But I think that in future, of course, the combination of measures bring more benefits. But these solar power projects are very fresh, let's say. We are piloting them only for 1 year and a little bit. So I think that the next step will be to combine, to do first the modernization and then to substitute some of the share of the consumption to green energy.
Okay, great, thank you. I want to come back to some of the things you said, but maybe with the benefit of the audience, I want to also make sure we give enough time to our other speakers. So does anyone have any quick questions for Anna about anything she said? Yeah, right at the front here. Can we get a microphone?
I can ask a question without micro.
Okay.
You have talked about innovative financing scheme. I wanted to know more about this innovative financing scheme because, as I understand, the local ESCOs have this capability.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the question. Indeed, we, as I said, developed 2 innovative financing mechanisms. One of them is Affordable Finance Facility, or we call it MANA's ESCO Fund, which we implemented with a Business Development Fund in Ukraine. This mechanism provides loans for 5 years with reduced interest rate to 7 or 9%. The average market rate is 16, 18, or even 20 now in commercial bank. So they reduced the interest rate. And as a pilot, at the pilot stage, they also provided some compensation of the loan body, some percentage of loan body. And the other mechanism is financial support mechanism, which was developed with the State Agency of Energy Efficiency of Ukraine through the Decarbonization Fund of Ukraine. Within this mechanism, Decarbonization Fund of Ukraine offered loans to ESCO with the interest rate of 3% per annum and for 10 years. Both mechanisms have less requirement to collateral. ESCO fund provides portfolio guarantees and other options tailored to the nature of the project.
Great, thank you, Anna. And yeah, obviously the availability of finance and the support mechanisms for finance are critical, as we've heard around the world. It's a real lesson on how to deploy the ESCO model, is how to actually get investors comfortable with finance. So they're good examples. Sören, let's move on to you. Sorry, I know there's questions, but we'll get maybe some common threads from the presentations, and then we can come back to those questions. Sören, please go ahead and tell us a bit more about what the Mitigation Action Facility is doing, particularly with reference to the examples that we've put on the agenda in Brazil and Mauritius, but more generally the questions of what is it that you're looking at and looking for in supporting ESCO market development work.
Yes, thanks. As I mentioned before, we are running these annual competitive calls, and we are collecting around 500 project submissions per year. And just as any other submissions that need to fall into our three key sectors, which are energy, industry, and transport, ESCO submissions, which would typically be energy ones, right? They need to respond to two main criteria against which we are assessing incoming submissions, and that would be feasibility and ambition of those projects. And in terms of ambition, I think that there is a technological side to it. So as we are providing grant funding that is then leveraged on a project basis, we want to see that funding actually go into areas where it is required. So at this stage where the facility currently is, I would exclude any LED aspects, even street lighting, I guess. So those would be aspects where we would think there's enough financial protection, there's a good business case behind it. That does not require concessional funding from a donor like ourselves. So the ambition needs to be higher. And for example, and that would be the Brazilian case, where the project intervenes with medium and small-sized companies, and it's basically about the provision of heat in industrial processes. So that is more difficult. Payback periods are longer. So I think that is something that is more appealing to our board that wants to see really ambitious projects. On the financial side of ambition, and we've heard already here about financial interventions, what we are seeing, and that applies both to the project in Brazil that is in implementation and the one in Mauritius under preparation, actually guarantee facilities. So where loan providers are receiving that additional comfort that if any losses occur, that they can get a coverage. That is in a very efficient way to leverage our grant funding on a project level. So that's something that we like to see a lot. We have a lot of projects that are also involving IFIs. There's some with EBRD as well. That is also typically interesting for us because EBRD itself would need to justify the level of concessionality of whatever they are doing. That would also give us additional comfort that the money is really used in a wise way. Talking about the feasibility of projects, we definitely want to see scale. So with the 5 to 25 million euro of grant funding that we are providing that is then leveraged, you're looking at projects that easily have something like 60, 80, 100 million euros investment overall, 3 to 5 years of implementation period. So you need to have a market that is actually sufficiently substantial to make use of that funding. And then at the same time, you need to have an institutional setup and market conditions and preparedness of the sector to actually absorb that funding in time. In our portfolio, we see quite a lot of projects who actually struggle to implement their projects in the 5 years they're having. So the better the institutional setup, the technical expertise in the market is already when you start with a project, the easier you can implement it, and the more likely it is that it's actually provided with funding from ourselves. In that case, Brazil is a very good, unique and fortunate example in the sense that they have, for a long period, had already a levy that all companies are paying into a national fund that itself was used to establish a public institution that provides services in terms of energy savings. That, of course, is great because then a project that we would fund can actually hook up with that institution. It can be used as a basis to share knowledge and experience, and it can also ensure that once our projects come to a close, there is sustainability both in terms of the technical expertise that is provided and then, of course, ideally also on the financial side. So those aspects of ambition and feasibility are really those that are striking. And once again, guarantee schemes, I think that's something that we would like to see for any ESCO model. And then, yeah, on the feasibility side, a market that is deep enough to actually make use with that of that substantial funding, and then technologies that actually require that additional support from our funding.
Great, thank you. That's really interesting. And you said a couple of things there that really give me some questions because, and I'm interested what people think about this, because one problem that we know is well documented, it's been mentioned today already. Energy efficiency projects are typically not so big. A building retrofit, it's going to be maybe $500,000 or less, probably not a huge sum. Many financiers, including for climate finance, are looking for larger ticket sizes. So, in the region where I work within Asian Development Bank, as an IFI, for example, we'll be looking minimum of 10 million, and even that's too small. They're looking for 50, 100 million, right? It's much easier to understand and analyze the risk and the cash flow from a very large wind farm than it is from a very tiny energy efficiency project, even though that project may be beneficial. So I think it's really interesting that you mentioned that, basically you would see it not being a sort of additional or not being a useful application of development finance for, you mentioned LED, for example, right? But this is the very thing that's going to give you scale and volume because these are commercialized technologies. So there's a paradox there in terms of being able to create the volume of market that will be financeable at the same time saying that, we want to make sure that we're promoting ambition and innovation. So I think that's a sticking point, and I think that would be something that, sharing more information, sharing about how to aggregate projects together to create those kind of ticket sizes that are needed, especially if we're looking at new and innovative technologies. This presents a challenge because we often hear from finance sector that finance is available. We want to spend money on these projects. But when it comes to the analysis, when it comes to the actual documentation, it's difficult to get it over the line, right? So I'll give you a quick moment to respond to that and also ask for some questions.
I think the simple answer is standardization. So you need to find that sweet spot in the market where you have something that is ambitious, but you have something that can be replicated so that you can bundle a lot of smaller projects. And that's exactly what's happening in Brazil. And we had another project in Pakistan in the textile sector, which basically also went into aspects of heating. So, and they basically came up with a set of standardized products of boilers actually that they would be replacing. And then you can package a lot of smaller tickets to actually have it as a larger push. And that is then also, of course, something that justifies establishing all this institutional setup in the first place. Because why would you do that just for a couple of really small cases? So you need to create an environment and have a market that is actually capable to absorb a larger amount of those transactions to also simply spin that whole wheel. And in the past, we've seen a lot of ESCO initiatives where also the timing simply didn't work, right? So you might have had like 1,000 audits somewhere, but then there was a time gap and the funding would not arrive in time. End of story, right? So that all needs to go hand in hand. And you simply need to ensure that you have that market and you intervene and have the audits at the beginning, a clear understanding of where it would lead then ultimately to the funding side.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting area because I think a lot of progress or ideas fall down because of this aspect where in smaller countries or developing countries where we don't have the capacity to conceive of this aggregated setup, institutional structure that would support that, it's quite difficult internally, domestically, to create that. I had some involvement, and my colleagues at UNEP CCC saw this through, but there was some funding from the Inter-American Development Bank for an aggregated project like that between municipalities in Argentina. So they were putting forward, and the innovation there in terms of ambition was not the technology, but the structure, right? So the project brought together 21 different municipalities, all with basically the same requirement of retrofitting streetlights. And they created an aggregated project from that to then obtain development funding. But the difficulty of establishing that structure of 21 entities working together on a common procurement is really challenging for a lot of developing countries. Any questions for Sören before we move on? Are we addressing the questions that you came to learn about? Or we need to start talking about something else? Please let us know, because it's important that you go away getting what you came here for. There's a question halfway at the back.
Hi, Mustafa Anzi. Actually interesting to see that, in the Middle East, we are facing more or less the same challenges with smaller projects where there is no interest to finance those projects. And every time you're sent back and saying, bring me a project that is more interesting. But we should ask the question, why do you want this larger project? And they will tell you because of due diligence and process. So give me criteria that makes it simpler for you to manage risk and to meet your criteria. And then we can go to the market and bring it to you. So this will save also time for the investor to do that due diligence. Because if you look at it, you can buy a car or get a car loan for 100,000 euro, 150,000 euro, which will cost you, money to run, but you cannot get it to replace certain equipment. And the other way of looking at it is that not everything needs an M&V plan or a performance guarantee. If you would ask someone, if you would change your lights conventional fluorescent to LED, there will be a saving. So it's proven technology. That there are thousands of projects that have been done. So is it really required to do the M&V and make it more complex? Or when we have technology that's already proven, you simplify the process, make it less risky, make it faster, easier, and more accessible also for the smaller items, ticket items. Yeah.
I can comment something on that and then to you, Sören. But your point about standardization, I think Sören already addressed this question, right? Basically, having these kind of structures, this is why you can get a loan for a new car in one day. Because financiers, bankers have actually standardized the process. They understand the technology, they understand the risks, they have security adequately. But I'm not sure that we're there yet exactly with most energy efficiency projects, because we have different products, we have different brands, we have hundreds of different varieties of lamps that we can put into this building. You need to have a clear sense of the savings that are on offer. Of course, there's methodologies to look at deemed savings. What would be the savings for this thing over its lifetime? With some tolerance, we can be clear about that. But any more complicated energy efficiency project needs M&V. And we need to have a financier who understands the need for M&V and the project developer who understands the need for M&V also. And then we need to have a qualified M&V professional to be able to verify the savings from the project, both the plan and then in operation. So obviously everybody needs EVO, right? But the point that I make is not quite so simple to standardize everything. And I think that's still where we are, but we need to look for ways. Sören.
Yeah, in terms of ticket sizes, I'm sure that EBRD would also have to say something there. From our perspective, our intervention is always a systemic one. If the project is getting too small, too opportunistic, then it doesn't really fit into the logic of what we are seeking for and where we are providing support. But I guess the good news is that we have the ESCO network, right? So there should be opportunities and ways to create that knowledge, to work across borders, and find for those situations where maybe also individual markets and countries are too small, other ways to have that knowledge sharing. Of course, obviously, also must ensure that we are not replicating stuff that has been done already in the past, right? Something that we also heard this morning, where you can be a bit worried that things are getting repeated, whereas you could tap into previous experience. So that is something, I think, where the ESCO network can really play a good role.
Okay, great. That's a takeaway action item for Sören and Pierre and the Global ESCO network. There's another question there. I'm conscious we should let Sule tell us about EBRD, but let's come back to you. And my other question asker has already disappeared, so you'll be next. Sule, tell us a bit more now that you've given us a good explanation of the role of EBRD.
Yeah.
And by the way, I want to compliment EBRD knowing quite a few of the development bank programs for energy efficiency around the world of being the most forward-leaning, the most organized in terms of user accessibility and most engaged with energy efficiency projects. But tell us about your experience with ESCO development in Turkey.
As I said at the beginning, our engagement in respect of energy efficiency sites first started with our policy dialogue with the Minister of Energy. And we have supported them for the development of the National Energy Efficiency Action Plan back in 2017-18. And this was necessary in order to put certain targets, define what are the areas to focus on, what is the total investment need to be made, and in a way put certain targets in that respect. Then we have moved on the second phase of our engagement with Minister of Energy for the development of national energy efficiency financing mechanisms. And actually that's already was talking about ESCO model as the best solution in that respect. And this was finalized back in 2019-2020. Of course, afterwards, the COVID and everything, the priorities unfortunately changed for a certain period of time. And we should not forget that Turkey is a developing country and there are many other priorities which is competing with each other. However, I'm very thankful to our Minister of Energy. They keep pushing us in that respect and then said, okay, now I have done my part. You have the policy, you have the targets. And then they have even, the ministry even done further by putting certain support scheme by providing some grants and in order to facilitate those investments. And by the way, we have also Energy Efficiency Association, which I am a board member, and also we have Bilal Bey from our Minister of Energy, who is also our board member. And with that, we try to understand what are the issues that is coming out in Turkey that that prioritization of energy efficiency investments are not really there. And there, where I am coming to the same point, and I'm actually happy to hear that we are not the only country who are having all these issues. And when we start digging in, okay, we have the financing mechanism, we have the policy, we have the targets, we have the incentive given by the Minister of Energy, and why not? Why still not? There is no move. And then, we as EBRD there, and together with all other fellow IFIs there, to support for the financing, but still the things are moving very slow. And the key issues which came up is, as also my co-panelists have mentioned, the sizes were small, there was no standardization, and this was a big problem in most of the cases to go ahead with the financing of these projects. But I need to put the industrials aside, because on the industrial side, there are a lot of other incentives with the cost savings, decrease of the resource usage, and energy efficiency in the industrial use or manufacturing makes a big difference. They decrease the costs dramatically in respect of the production. I'm putting that aside because we are providing direct financing for energy efficiency investments of large industrials, manufacturing companies, and so already. So we have a direct financing scheme. The problem comes with the size when the sizes got small, and as you said also, $10 million is even too small for us. And knowing that in Turkey we have only 140 people, how can we deal with such this? There we always use our fellow Turkish banks and non-bank financing institutions to support us. Because what we do is we provide we call this indirect financing. In a cooperation with our Turkish banks, we put a framework, and under this framework, we provide programmed loans with certain definition of what the purpose of this program for. And in the past, we have done like MIDCEF, TURCEF, and now we have Green Economy Financing Facility, which energy efficiency, by the way, is one of the items there, which we can provide to our Turkish banks in order to facilitate these investments. But then again, we come up with an issue. The problem was the technical capacity. And the problem was there was no standardized measurement system for those energy efficiency investments, which would make the banks comfortable about the financing that they provide. So basically where we are standing now is we are in a stage that in the one side, we need to, I'm giving this Turkey as an example because there are other markets like Spain, Brazil, I have heard, and other markets already have a very developed scheme in that respect, which I think in Turkey we need to really take those countries as a case studies. What they have done in Spain to become so successful, and what are the lessons learned from there that we can take it and replicate in Turkey. So I think that's the step. So it's basically the availability of financing is there. The problem and the issue which is stopping those investments is increasing the awareness one side, increasing the knowledge and the technical capacity of the financing institutions, which we are happy to provide support, by the way, through our technical support, and then come up with standardized products, financing products, in order to tap this market in, because the targets are big, investment needs are over $20 billion when you put all together, but the benefits out of it is great, and people need to understand it. And I think in Turkey especially, we are not yet there, and at the moment energy efficiency investments are seen more like a cost item rather than saving. And one scheme which is already started developing, by the way, but I don't consider this as energy efficiency, I call this as a transition to green. We have a lot of projects for this, we call it distributed energy or the self-consumption. So basically the companies, the buildings, and smaller institutions or industrials or manufacturing entities, they invest in their invest in solar, for example, rooftop solars or wind power projects for their self-consumption needs. And the law allows them to make investment of up to twice of the need that they have, and they can pay this or set this off with their electricity bills, which is the great thing. And then right now there is a move in Turkey in that respect, and they consider it as energy efficiency investment. For me, that's not energy efficiency, because you are still consuming the energy. You are not decreasing the energy saving. So I think we need to increase together with our ministry and EODER, ENVER, and all these associations need to work together to increase the awareness of what is energy efficiency, and converting from fossil fuels to solar power usage for the operations is not energy efficiency or energy saving. So there are a lot to be done in Turkey still, and we are here to support. But probably for us as IFI, I think our Turkish banks and Turkish financing institutions will be a very important partner for us, and we need to somehow bring them on the picture so that we can find a way to finance all these smaller projects in a more standardized form with the support on the technical capacity side.
All right, thank you. Well, you've raised a number of interesting issues there, including, just the battle that we have to get energy efficiency awareness raised. It's interesting, I was just thinking when you were talking how it's very common when you're talking about a project, we'll sort of say, oh, this project has a 4-year payback, right? You're familiar with payback, right? Did you ever hear anyone talk about their renewable energy project that way? Or any other investment, right? They say, oh, we're going to invest in this and we achieve this % return on investment, right? Exactly what you said. People don't want to spend the money on energy efficiency. It's a cost. We need to be paid back for the cost. It's a mentality shift that needs to happen. Right? Because if we don't have that, we're still seeing this as like somehow, something that we don't really want to treat as an investment class. But actually, we know that this is one of the largest contributions to emissions reduction. It also creates better economic productivity. It creates, improved results and penetration for your renewable generation. But, you guys know that. But this is the message that we need to continue to carry forward. So that's a whole nother aspect. I want to check with the organisers what time we're finishing, because I have a big sign here saying we're finishing at 3:35, but I think the break is scheduled for 3:45. 3:45. Okay, so that means we have around 15 or just over 15 minutes to run, and I want to start to tease out some of these questions and look for the common themes. I think we've touched on most of the themes that I would expect across policy, across awareness and capacity building, some of the technology aspects, some of the measurement data aspects, some of the finance aspects, and some of these very operational questions about what's needed to make programs work. And these are lessons learned by many countries already that developing countries can learn from. Why we have the Gen to share this information in forums like this. I didn't forget my question asker over here. I hope you can, 1, 2, 3, great. We have a lot of questions, that's what I want. But first is in the front, then behind. Please, your question. And also whether any of this is resonating with you or anything else you still would like to know. Please let us know where you're from as well, and your designation. So.
Hi, this is Volkan Gerdan from Istanbul, Turkey. So, regarding the size of the projects, I think the EBRD CEF program has always been a quite, let's say, comprehensive way of reaching these granular size projects. However, the missing part has always been that the partnering banks always try to give the credits to the balance sheet of the investor instead of the project itself. We have always seen the lack of ESCOs, but not consultants, but ESCOs really carrying the financial load of the project. And it's easy when we are talking about the car. It's not because it's standard, it is because that the bank can take the car back. That's the fact. The car has a second-hand value and the bank can take it back and sell. It's so simple. But when we are talking about, I don't know, a chiller already installed in a building, this is the complexity which makes things harder. I think there can be a very strong tool, the insurance, especially the profit loss insurance, which is still not so much available around the world. Many countries have them, which makes the IFIs to understand it more easier, because at the end of the day, there is a money you can calculate when something cannot happen. Why do you think we are not till now we talk about many things, but why do you think we are not talking about the insurance of the investments, of ESCO investments, which has always been a tool to make it more easy to sell to the banks? Or do you think that it's not worth it? Thank you very much.
It's a good question, and I think the question about insurance, I'm going to quote Sören, who's the co-chair of the Global ESCO Network, that finance and insurance are two sides of the same coin. Basically, you can use insurance as a form of guarantee to make sure that there's some collateral. You're quite right that a lot of ESCOs or aspiring ESCOs looking to get finance find it difficult to convince an investor of their ability to capture the cash flow, right? They don't believe the cash flow. We want to have some security. It's on a property, it's on from some guarantee, whatever, right? So unless we can convince investors that this cash flow is actually bankable, then they're going to look for other recourse. And the funny thing is that most of the time when there's guarantees, all this stuff, guarantees never get called upon, right? Almost every experience around the world of having guarantee programs is that there's zero default, or very, very low, right? So we know that this works, but still banks can't get comfortable with this risk, right? And Shaba has something to say about that they're not doing their job. But my point would be, and then I'll let Sören respond. Sorry, I'm talking too much, but it's an interesting topic. The question of insurance is you still have to get the insurance company comfortable with the risk to be able to price the insurance. So if we can convince the bankers, then we can access finance. If we can't convince the bankers, then we still need to convince the insurance companies. We're still not there yet either. But I agree with you that this is another tool in the toolbox to potentially allow energy efficiency finance to flow, where there's people feeling that the risk is covered. Sören, do you want to comment on this question about guarantees and insurance?
I think I couldn't have responded any better than you.
No, okay, sorry.
Just one additional...
You guys are supposed to be the experts, but I talk too much. So,
Just one additional remark maybe on insurance. It also means adding another level of complexity, right?
Yep.
And once again, you will need scale. Because for somebody to put together the insurance in the first place, there needs to be numerous cases. So it doesn't really help with that aspect that you might be stuck with rather singular tickets, transactions that you cannot properly standardize package.
Yeah, and I should say, without overstepping, that we're thinking about how to create scale in the industry, how to create critical mass. Potentially there's interest in reinsurance at a global scale across different countries for energy efficiency projects, which can be a driver for development of insurance products at a national level, which ultimately would be needed to support projects at the local level. So this is look at the room we have here, different ESCO sectors coming together to think about these questions. Maybe there's a discussion that can be had about this question of bringing a higher critical mass to finance through collaboration between us. That can also apply to insurance. I want to move on to the other questions because we're going to run out of time, partly from my over-talking. Please. Yeah.
Hello, I'm coming from Serbia, UNDP Serbia, so sharing the same point of view. And I have two questions and one comment. The questions would be how you, as development organizations or organizations involved facilitating the development, is promoting actually not this single project approach and actually promoting something that Sula mentioned at the end, that energy efficiency is the combination of energy efficiency measures. So it is also thermal isolation, it's energy supply, it's heating, cooling, ventilation, smart management of the building or system, whatever. That's one question. What we are doing and what is our strategy to promote such kind of approach in our projects, in our initiatives? Because if we are going and follow just the single approach, we will never reach these ambitious goals related to climate, etc. The next question is that all our feasibility studies that we are doing are giving some kind of the projections related to return of investments, payback periods, etc., etc. So these are usually 6, 7, 8 years. Sometimes when we have the public lighting, it can be very, very short. But in general, the ESCO contracts are pretty rigid. So once when you get in arrangement with the private partner, you don't have a lot of space for further improvements after he installed what he promised. And the technology is developing very, very fast. In maybe 6 months, we don't know, but we will have new heating pumps, or we will have some kind of the new lighting system. What flexibility mechanisms do you apply in your projects, in your activities, or do you work on any kind of that kind of flexibility? So these are the two questions. And the comment is that what we are talking here is mainly energy supply and energy performance, but we are not talking about the intersector projects. For example, ESCO and energy efficiency in transport sector, which is also very interesting. Renewable energies, possibilities to supply, for example, biomethane, to make some kind of the aggregated project with technology companies, etc., etc. This is also something what we are doing in Serbia. We are developing and designing such kind of the concepts, but this is something also that we might consider and that we might also discuss a bit. That's it.
Okay, well, that's quite a lot of questions to answer there, but maybe
Yeah,
I'll
I can
call on all of
start.
you. Maybe Anna, would you like to go first?
Thank you very much for interesting questions. First of all, I probably will comment on your comment first, that in Ukraine the payments, the returns of payment to ESCO company are secured by the budget code of Ukraine, by the legislation. That's why only for public buildings. That's why for now ESCO market is mostly developed on public buildings or municipal facilities because there will be definitely payback. And we need to learn more about the other spheres and to develop market there in the upcoming years. Regarding the complex approach, comprehensive approach, I can say that now I told more about the ESCO market development and this part, but in fact the project and UNDP supported municipalities in energy management as well. We are providing capacity building not only on ESCO mechanism, but in general. We actually, very recently, we issued the online course for municipal energy management for anyone who wants to work as an energy manager or implement projects in energy efficiency, in distributed generation development, in energy management as it is. This is opportunity to update the knowledge on a regular basis. We also promote all the aspects of energy management. We also provided the templates of implementing of energy management system in the communities. So this is one part, and I will pass the floor further for the next questions. Thank you.
Sule, do you have any comment to add on this one?
Well, actually, it is such a, I mean, okay, in the case of Turkey, if I need to say, of course, we have included, I mean, the Ministry of Energy has already put in the action plan targets for each of the segments for buildings, transportation, industry, and so bundling of those is more on the solution side, I see it, because each of the sector or the areas have its own dynamics. And for example, most of the examples we are giving here are the building energy efficiency investments. And ESCO model is a tool to finance and to realize those investments to be made, not on the balance sheet of the company or the client itself, but through using on the one side the expertise of the ESCOs, but at the same time the comfort that it gives to financing institutions that once a ESCO has been put in place to take this investment obligation, they are there to deliver. And the end result, the achievement of the energy efficiency targets will be there. For example, in the case of Turkey, we are not yet there to understand what ESCO does. What is the role of ESCO? If a company gives all their energy efficiency investments to one ESCO company, what is it going to bring it to them? And I mean, I need to give you the example of Turkey because I'm living here. And what we have when we exchange with our colleagues who are operational in other countries, we have seen that they have gone through all this process already, and there is already very set up in the especially developed countries. There is already a known setup what ESCO does, what is expected from ESCO, both from the client point of view who wants to do those investments and from the financier point of view who wants to provide the financing. And it is at the end, it is the ESCO company with its technical expertise are the one we trust in providing the solution. I'm a banker. I don't know for energy efficiency of a building, what kind of solutions are there or the technologies are there. But I trust that whatever the ESCO brings in as a model at the end serves the purpose. That's really what I can say from a banking point of view.
All right. Well, there's a lot of interesting topics here. We haven't addressed the one that you mentioned about locking in technologies and dealing with innovation over time. I think that's a difficult one to answer. I'm conscious we only have 3 minutes left and at least one more question to answer, which is right there, and then one over here, and that's probably going to be all we have time for, unfortunately. Can we get a microphone here, and we'll aim for a very quick question and a quick answer. No, it's part way back there. Sorry. She's been waiting a long time.
Sorry, I didn't notice. First of all, thanks for this focused organization. This is Neslihan Gökdemir R, energy economist and journalist. Actually, my first question is for the...
Okay, can you just... We have literally 3 minutes left in the whole panel.
My focus question is, what will happen in Europe after these electrical wars? What about the energy security? And my second question is, what will happen in Ukraine? What is your assessment for the mineral agreement? I mean, mineral war agreement, actually. So, would you evaluate this two dimensions? Thank you.
Can I suggest that this is not an answer that was going to take 30 seconds? Very difficult question, but an important question. I think we need to wrap things up, actually. There's one more I promised here, and then we'll finish. And apologies to others, but we are going straight from here to a coffee break, and we can start to share more there. And apologies, we're not going to answer, but you can talk with Anna, I think, afterwards is more appropriate.
Say one sentence about energy security.
Okay, one sentence.
Just I wanted to stress the importance of ESCO, the role it played in times of war for Ukraine, because our municipalities don't have enough their budget money to provide, to install alternative energy solutions to be resilient during the to the energy cut-ups. So the ESCO actually played the role of providing this additional resilience to communities, because this water facilities, what community can do without working water supply, or the hospital when ESCOs provided ability to those services to be provided during the electricity absence of electricity. So this is very, very short.
No, thank you, Anna. That was more than one sentence, but you make a good point about energy security and the role of energy efficiency. This will be the last question before we wrap up and go to the break. Thanks.
Thank you for the organization. My name is Emin Atak. I am from Istanbul Governor. I would like to ask one question. There is one client and ESCO, but also designs are very important. It must be optimum design for energy saving. There mustn't be over design. Therefore, both cases are losing. That is why who will we trust for the designer? Is this also taught by the ESCO?
Yeah, well, I think the question about confidence in ESCOs points to the need for third-party verification on things like energy savings through EVO, where I would support having standardized protocols. We've talked a bit about standardization. We've talked a bit about the need to have accreditation for ESCOs as well. Not much, it was on other panels too. But there are many, many things that need to be brought to the ESCO development for success, which include bringing trust to ESCOs, right? Because, as you say, the design of projects and the design and structure of programs is paramount. And what you see, even where there is finance, as Sule was suggesting, typically you don't get projects which can comply, or you get projects which are not going to display the necessary capacity to be able to succeed. So these are the challenges across policy, capacity, awareness raising, finance, some very specific operational measures. We didn't get into the things around procurement, but there's a lot of measures here. We know the solutions. They're just difficult to implement. And this is where sharing of information is going to be useful, and this is why these kinds of fora are extremely valuable. We are out of time, and I really want to thank you all for your participation, your active participation. I feel like we could just get started and keep going, but it is good that we're having a coffee break now. I want to thank you for being what I would see as the most interactive session today, and also want to mention that we are by far the most gender-balanced panel of today as well, so congratulations to us for that. But thank you very much for your participation.